Hi everyone, this is Lola Shafra. Today, I want to go back, well actually kind of touch on it's like a trending thing that's going on with the Love and Marriage Huntsville crew. Of course, it's about Martell and his strawberry letter. But before we start, I want to once again remind everyone the purpose of the channel. Here, pretty much we're here to discuss, love, life, and relationships and everything in between, and anything in terms of trending topics that are kind of related with that topic. So as we start, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe. Feel free to share and definitely share a comment or two of how you feel about the video or your opinion of what you think you'd like me to add or to talk about. So let's begin. So pretty much, so I know I've been reviewing the show Love and Marriage Huntsville. I've done about 2 episodes. The next things coming up this weekend will be the reunion episodes, which are going to be interesting to see if they're confronted and how they act when they're being confronted. But anyway, the main thing today that we're going to be talking about right now is Martell. So we know that now she's my girl. So my girl Melody has been going on this media storm. She's been talking to vloggers, stations, everyone to kind of discuss, the show, but more importantly, to push her single that's out, Telltale Signs, as well as the little, she has these courses she does related to real estate. So she's been seen everywhere. And even before that, everyone's consensus about Martell at this point has been
off with his head, put him on the stake.
Yeah. So for the most part, most females who've watched the show are not feeling him. And I think he's realized that he's either he's been confronted with it, or he's been told that his reputation's not savory. So in his defense, and what he's been trying to do is, I guess his PR spoke with him. I'm not sure what they did. They have now, he decided to contact Steve Harvey's show. Thought maybe I guess he was thinking maybe Steve Harvey, who had a similar background to him, having had, marriages in the past, which did involve some cheating. I don't know if he thought he'd get some fair press from him. And we do remember there was a time when one of the interviews that Melody had done with Q, Funky Geneva, during the interview, he kept calling Q's phone, ring, ring. So I guess maybe he's trying to smooth out the waters and see if he can clean up his reputation, because I'm sure he probably wants to sell something. I mean, if you've got some kind of name out there, your point really, you want to start pushing something and make some money. So he goes on to, Steve Harvey morning show has this thing, strawberry letter. Typically it's a letter that's written in, they send it in, someone sends it in, it's some complicated love relationship and they're asking for advice. But they did, I don't know if this is the first live one, but anyway, this was a live one where they actually had him on video and everyone was kind of, commenting. And his thing was like, his question was, what should he do to move on and clean everything up? So he's worried about his reputation. That's what it sounded like to me. So, there's Cheryl and I think her name is Carla. The 2 ladies on the show, they're familiar with they're on Steve Harvey's show. They're familiar with Love and Marriage Huntsville. They've been watching it. They know what he's been up to. They understand everything. Of course, the gentleman, Uncle Steve and Cousin Tommy, may not be keeping up so much though, so they're not aware of the details. So it really begins, he starts talking, and then, so Uncle Steve knows nothing. So he don't know. So, because we know the narrative on the show has been that, Martell has been talking about how, Melody cheated, just pushing a different narrative to distract. And so, on the show, on Strawberry Letter today, he's like, well, you know what? He's now acknowledging that, yes, I cheated, but he didn't, he's trying to defend his prior position. He didn't, want to talk about it or lied about it in the past, because he didn't want it to be a topic on the show, even though he signed up to do a reality show. I don't know what to tell you. So anyway, Uncle Steve's kind of going through the data, and he's able to get to a point where he gets Martell to acknowledge. We hadn't seen this, honestly, a clean acknowledgement without blaming her on the show. Yes, you cheated. Could you have done better? Do you realize, this is Uncle Steve kind of pushing the narrative. You realize that she didn't deserve this. Do you realize that you publicly embarrassed her? And then he also made him acknowledge a key thing was, he says, do you realize that, or do you acknowledge that your actions led to the demise of the marriage? And we're not talking about Melody, we're not talking about any other factors, but just focusing on you. And he did accept that. I'm going to give him that. I'll give him that. He accepted that without trying to backtrack to Melody. I mean, later on, he said some things I wasn't impressed with, but definitely he did say yes. He even went on to say that, as not an explanation, but just an add-on. Yeah, he definitely, when he looks back on his actions, he considers himself to be greedy. Okay, acceptable. And so as they go on, so then, Uncle Steve begins to, tease things out, as to, okay, so yes, you were greedy. What do you think the breakdown was? Like, yes, you stepped out. And yes, you're saying that Melody didn't do certain things. And at this point, the thing is whether she didn't perform particular acts while they were intimate, or whether she didn't perform them as frequently as he would desire. We don't know. We know the truth. But anyway, he wasn't satisfied. He stepped out. But then Uncle Steve kind of flipped it on him. He said to him that, you know what? What complaints would she have of you? Similar to what you had. And he was just kind of dancing around the issue. So yeah, I see that Martell is I think he's acknowledging that he's done wrong, because he's getting the impact, or he's feeling the heat or the smoke from the public. He's really been smoked. Everyone is, for the most part, everyone is kind of looking at him sideways. That you had a beautiful family, you had a beautiful woman who was about her stuff. She was a boss chick, if you want to use the the popular terms. But definitely she was a woman with character and integrity. That what were you looking at when you destroyed this relationship, even after she gave you chances? And he acknowledged that she gave him, various opportunities to get his act together. So I think he's now feeling the impact and the heat of the public. So he's now, I guess something's dawning on him. We don't know. So yeah, he definitely could not come back and say, honestly, what he thought his faults were. That's another blind side. I'm not sure, I guess he wouldn't see that. But what I thought was interesting was when they were trying to go through the details, Uncle Steve did kind of ask, because he had no idea there was a baby involved. So he's still kind of teasing through it and still kind of telling him, you need to give her a public apology because you embarrassed her publicly. So now you must acknowledge and apologize publicly. You can't just apologize on the phone and say, hey baby, I'm sorry, let's get back together. No, because you embarrassed her right in the open. So the same venue you used to embarrass her is the same venue you need to apologize and set things straight and give us some kind of closure. Yes, you're divorced, but you want to set things right, because there is such thing as redemption. Coming back from something you've done wrong. There is space for that, but is he ready? Does he have the tools to do that? Has he realized his wrong? That's where Uncle Steve is going with that. But then, just to tease out the story, the lady's piping, there's a baby. Steve was like, What? Wait, what you mean? Did you say that Melody had a baby? No, Uncle Steve, Martell had a baby outside with this woman. And he's just like, takes a breath. And I guess he's trying not to come to judge him harshly at this point, because he knows he's guilty of, cheating as well. But then he's still kind of shocked. So he goes to tease on just to, to put timelines in place. So how old is this baby? Martell refuses to kind of say what it is. He just kind of says, you know what, it's a newborn, and doesn't want to say. Now, the question now you'd ask yourself is, what's the secret behind why he won't disclose the time frame? Could he have another woman he was seeing simultaneously at that time? Nothing would surprise me at this point, because I can't think as to why he's making this such a big deal. But we'll leave that alone. So yes, Uncle Steve says, fine, you want to confess, let's go on. And another thing he goes through, which I thought was interesting, he's like, just to make his point, he's like, so your children, the last two, what are the ages? So really he's trying to compare, Melody's kids to the lady outside, the other kid. And we find out that the youngest of, Melody's is over 1, maybe a year and a half. So Steve does the calculation. So Steve thinking like, sir, you're definitely kind of dabbling very close and unprotected. And these are the things here. It's one thing, it's not just to say, oh, point the finger and say, so you cheated, you're this, you're that, but it's like the safety of these separate females, both Melody, who was his official wife at the time, and the lady on the outside. You are now exposing both of them to things they shouldn't be exposed to. That's the key. That's irresponsible. So I think he didn't say anything, but he did leave that space open. for the, you know, the listeners to infer. And I think at this point, one of the biggest things you definitely want to be aware of is, I'm not saying there should be a way to cheat, but if you're going on the outside, if you really love your wife the way you say you do or did, why would you now open her up to being exposed to your activities? So you left her exposed. Above the emotional construct there's that point there. There are diseases, there are infections. There's some you can't get rid of. We leave that alone. So they go on, we've got to the point where there's like a year and a half between both children from different females. And then he stresses a point which I think was great. He says, if you have something broken at home, you can't fix what's broken at home on the outside. Hence, you're having an issue with your partner. And the reason why I wanted to kind of address this really is because we're talking about marriage. Marriage, we know, is not it's not an easy thing. It requires work. In fact, you probably begin to enjoy marriage more after a lot of work has been put in, because you've got two different people, two different sets of mind, two different ways of thinking. They come from two different backgrounds, coming together as one, as the Bible says. So there's going to be some friction. After all the flowers and the rosy and the hearts kind of disappear, now the real work begins. And so you really technically want to have two adults who are willing to put the work in. So then that's the point there. It's like, yeah, something was, whatever it was wrong, whether I consider it trivial or whatever the public thinks, it was two people having a misunderstanding, and one of them chose to deal with that misunderstanding by going to the outside. And that's how the story, unfolds. So he's, at the same time, I guess he's talking to him, like, because Uncle Steve does have this boys academy where he meets up with young males who don't have male figures in their life and kind of just keeps them for the summer, like a week or two, and has other people as mentors, because he does believe in building back the male image, who they're meant to be, because there are a lot of households and homes where there's not a man there 24/7. So he wants to reestablish what a man should be. And we all know, as a female, I can't raise a man, I can't make a boy a man. A man is made a man by watching the example of another man, being taught by another man, being mentored by another man, maybe having a coach who has there has to be a man in the picture to teach a boy how to be a man, or else he's just going to be skirting around in the body of a male, but not really being a man. So he's a male, but not a man. And he understands that typically this is a rite of passage that has to be taught. You can't read a book, you can't guess, you can know that you're not doing something right. And then once again, this kind of leads us to Martell's background. We know he was raised by his mother solely. So he leaves that, but he's talking to a grown man, so he's not, kind of coaching him on the air like that. So he acknowledges that he feels that he can see that Martell does look like he's in pain and does feel some guilt. And then he does go on to, kind of ask him about the love. Are you in love with her or aren't you? He says he loves her, but he's not in love with her. That's neither here nor there. At this point, they're divorced, so it doesn't matter. So, my personal opinion was that he's still in love with her, but was still doing wrong, couldn't control himself, which is why he was begging, please come back, but she didn't come back. But at this point, he still feels the need to save some face. That's fine. I'm not here to judge him. But, what I like, as they went down, teasing through it, he's like, okay, you're publicly apologizing to now help her have some closure, and be aware and be prepared that you should endure some suffering. You're going to get the public's backlash. They're not going to support you, but endure that. Be a man, take it in, and then be ready to move on. Don't think you can move on without that suffering. And then continue. So, and then finally at the end of the interview, he gives an apology. I'm not here to judge the content of his apology. I guess to his best ability, he did try to apologize. But I definitely wanted to bring that up because I like that. I don't know if it was his idea or if his publicist's idea, but at least he's getting some feedback. Uncle Steve probably couldn't be as honest as he probably wanted to be for two reasons. One, he's not even aware of the man's story or the show, and two, real healing happens behind the camera. So I'm sure if they were to have more conversations, it'll probably be more constructive without the camera, because we all know, we've seen Martell on the show, we can see that and I think it's for all of us, at a certain point, a certain part of us wants to save face. And I don't want to start, painting out other character traits that you might have, or I might suspect he have, because I'm not here to diagnose him. I haven't seen him as a patient of mine, but definitely, a human, reaction is to save face. So you can't really get an honest reaction I would say, with the camera rolling, honestly, how honest can you get a reaction from a man who wants to save face, whose his main aim was, or his main problem, or deciding to come on the air was to save face. So there's only so much they can do, but I do hope that there would be some more conversations, you know, behind the scenes, in the background. I hope he continues to see Dr. Francis, because once again, he's a human. Humans, we do make mistakes, but the beauty of being a human is if we really acknowledge what we've done wrong, take ownership of it, and then turn around. We can turn things around. We repent of what we've done, apologize. We can move on and actually create a different narrative, a different story, a different path. We can recover from our mistakes. We are not our mistakes. And that's what Dr. Francis told him. So I'm hoping that's sincerely what he's attempting to do. And I was just kind of interested by the conversation he had with Uncle Steve. With the little facts Uncle Steve had, he was able to give him some pointers. And that was the real reason for me kind of bringing this up today, because, you know, marriages, there are different ways to look at it. And sometimes looking at the public eye, it can help us to see where if we see someone on the out, you know, up there on TV doing something wrong, we can now ask ourselves, what am I doing that's similar to that? And how can I make that different? And so pretty much that's what we're going to kind of I just want to talk about that for. But anyway, guys, it's been a pleasure. I'm definitely going to sign out right now. But don't forget, once again, to subscribe, like this video, make a comment, and share the video. Thank you, everyone. Lola, over and out.